Hey, hey, and welcome to a new episode. I am Dagny,
And I'm Damali.
and in this episode, we want to discuss with you gender. Okay, now before you start rolling your eyes, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we want to broaden the scope on the conversation about gender constructs, gender fluidity, and how we express ourselves, accept ourselves, and hold space for others. So, as a disclaimer, before we go into the conversation, Damali and I, are not here to try to indoctrinate anybody or force anything on anybody. If you've been listening to all
Mm-hmm.
of our episodes, or some of them, or if this is your first time, we're very much into wanting you to think for yourself, wanting to introduce you to different perspectives, analyze and dissect them, and see whether maybe you might pick up some gems that you can implement with your own experiences and perspectives. All right. So always want this to be a safe space. So if for you, any sort of conversation that tries to broaden the boundaries about gender, if that triggers you, this may not be an episode for you. If it
Yes.
doesn't, then we can continue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So to start, let's first lay the foundation when it comes to definitions. So we're all on the same page, right? So, Damali, why don't
Yes.
you start and share in terms of what you found the definition so that we understand the difference, the distinction between gender and sex?
Yes. Okay. So with the definition that I got, sexes are physical characteristics at birth. So whether you're a female or a male, that is what sex is. How you look physically is what sex is. Gender is more about the social constructs. It's what we identify as, societal roles, expressions. It's basically our behaviors and identities, right? So it's more of what society says that this is how, girls should like pink and girls should wear dresses and boys should like cars and they should wear, suits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the main difference. We made sure to look it up so we make sure we have the proper difference there. So, yeah, so sex is the thing that's how you look like. And then gender is more of your behavior and what you enjoy doing or like doing or uh,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Mm,
And then
no.
with that, that then takes us to how gender has been defined
Yes.
and whether we actually resonate with that, right?
Mhm.
So we can
Right.
start, which part of that would you like to start with?
What should we start with first? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, first, okay, so sex-wise, I'm a female and Dagny is a female, right? For example. And gender is more of the things that we like. Apparently, I think, what was it? There was someone that I think in 1955, 1945 is when they started talking about this distinction between sex and gender. I suppose that we could first start off since the we can take the sex part out of the way because we both identify as females, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think we can start with the gender thing and the fluidity of gender and whether we match with I guess, the definition that society kind of gives to people, or not.
Okay. So, in terms of how we see society is defining gender, and
Yeah.
as always, I feel there's always layers of nuances to this when it comes to culture and race and ethnicity, because a lot of what I've noted, a lot of rhetoric about gender kind of doesn't always include Black women or
True.
excludes Black women, which we
Mhm.
are. So the notion
Yes.
that, well, the gender definition for women, where, okay, if you're a girl, you should like pink. If you're a woman,
Mhm.
your priorities should be your looks, being appealing to the certain gaze,
Yes.
wanting to only be married with children, needing to always be receiving, soft, and don't know anything,
Mm-hmm.
needing to not be able to make decisions for yourself, needing to be quote unquote submissive at all times. And then at the same time, then being blamed when things go wrong. So,
Yes. Scapegoat.
yes, in a nutshell, those are the types of things that, as a woman, gender identity is supposed, these are the traits you're supposed to be implementing, embodying,
Mm-hmm.
acting as. So, Damali, I'm going to ask you to share first. Yes.
Mm.
In terms
Yeah, my
of,
first dip.
indeed, conforming to gender as a woman, growing up, because I think as kids, it's not as much of a big deal because we're all playing
True.
around on the playground. We're all reading the
Yeah.
same books. It's not like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, we're all just kids, but yeah, you're a boy, you're a girl, whatever. I think later on, maybe depending on your development, maybe adolescence, teen years, and then moving on, there's a bit
Mm-hmm.
more of exploration of how do I want to express myself and
Yeah.
what messages am I receiving as to what is acceptable, what is loved, what is valued, and what is
Mm-hmm.
seen as a reason to exclude me or mock me or disrespect me, right? So, in
Yeah.
that framework, how has your experience been in terms of identifying how to express yourself as a woman in a way
Yeah.
that aligns or resonates with you?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that, yeah, when you're a child, I think, yeah, child, teenager years, maybe wasn't as, I didn't know so much about the whole sex and gender thing as much as I do now. But I do know for the first thing, my favorite color is not pink. Surprise, surprise. My favorite color is actually blue, but apparently I'm not supposed to like that because I'm a girl. Because if you go into girls like blue and then what was it? Yeah, guys like blue, girls like pink. So yeah, so that was the one. That was the first thing that I knew that I was different. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Half kidding, but you know. But yeah, so I like blue. I think I was kind of like a tomboyish as like a child. In some ways, I still am. I think. There are different things that make me think about that. I know there was a time I didn't really like wearing dresses. Like I didn't like wearing dresses. I didn't like the color pink. I thought it was too girly, and I thought it was like, pink. I don't even like pink. Um, I didn't mind being like I didn't mind playing sports with boys and things like that. I had fun with things like that. um if I prided myself in being like, oh, I'm the fastest runner kind of thing. I can run the fastest. If we're playing a game and it's like girls against boys and I'm the last one, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna win, things like that. um and then even as I got older and realized, oh, boys, oh, girls kind of thing, I kind of still kind of kept that kind of, I guess, slight tomboyish thing. Like it's always like, I guess I could dress more girly, quote unquote, but I was always kind of like, I don't really feel like it, kind of thing. Um, I think also with what's it called? Yeah, I just kind of like I don't, I always felt kind of, am I being too, it's always this thing like, am I girly enough or am I acting the certain way I'm supposed to act and things like that. Even like the marriage thing, I know a lot of times girls, like when they're younger, they're already wondering, oh, I wonder who my Prince Charming will be, who will I marry, and things like that. That kind of thing didn't really happen for me. I was kind of just like, oh, I guess you just get married, have kids. Okay. Like it was never like, I didn't make like a Pinterest board or anything like that about, oh, marriage. It kind of was just, kind of afterthought. And also, uh, I guess even with like certain things you're supposed to do, like when you go like on a date or something, and like the guy's supposed to pay, that felt weird for me. I was like, no, you pay half and I pay half. Why are you, things like that. I like doing things like myself. Like if I can do it myself, I'll do it. I don't have to ask, like, kind of thing. Um, and then, or even like makeup. I remember for a time I didn't really like makeup, and I thought that I was, this is when I was younger. I get it now, but I'm like, I didn't want to wear makeup. I thought that makeup was like something fake, like people trying to make themselves look fake, and I didn't like the idea of it. And obviously that's not true. But as I've gotten older, I find things like makeup to be like tedious and like I'll only wear it if I have to. I don't really know like even as an older person, don't really know that much about how makeup works and all of that. I recently learned new things about makeup, things like that. And with the gender roles, apparently you're supposed to, and then also certain times in my life, I felt like I did try to act more quote unquote girly or try to act a little bit like other girls, but it always felt like it didn't fit, right? Like trying to, oh, I should wear high heels more, or I'm supposed to, you know, do this certain thing or look the certain way, or oh, I'll wear makeup or, things like that. And then or even seeing like other girls who are like dressed up really nicely with their dresses and their nails, and I know they're not perfect, but they seem perfect, right? Their makeup's always done, their hair and nails are always perfectly manicured, and I'm always kind of like, oh, am I supposed to? Should I act like that? Should I like not be, kind of thing? Um, and then like certain things I'm into, like I like horror movies, like even though I love horror movies, and I guess are we supposed to? Are we allowed to like them? Kind of thing. And so I think guess that's some examples of the whole gender thing. We're questioning like, am I being to this or to that? Or, like what does this mean? And yeah, and then even older, like the way girls talk about stuff, sometimes I'm like, but I don't feel that way. Like I don't think in that way. Um, and it's just interesting to think about that and be like, oh, so then does that mean like what does that mean? That I don't fit the gender that society said I'm supposed to fit. So what does that mean for me, right? And of course, as you get older, you just kind of be yourself and you get used to it. But yeah, it's and I guess I'm very independent. I'm a very independent person. I don't really need that. Like I do a lot of things on my own. I don't, and I think back like years ago, back then, years ago, you kind of couldn't really be that independent. You had to have a guy with you, and even today, some people need to be with people all the time. Whereas for me, I'm kind of like, no, I can do it on my own. Like I can, what like I've been doing, and like, oh, the box is heavy. That's fine. I'll carry it myself, or oh, if it's like not that I want to accept help, but it's like, I can do it myself, or I can do this, and I'm okay with being like strong in, certain ways, but and yeah, and I prefer like t-shirts and pants more than I more than I prefer dresses, I think. Um, but yeah, it's definitely been like an up and down thing with me for that. What about you, Dagny?
So,
How have you
yes, before I answer that,
uh,
I want to go a little
uh,
deeper and ask you a question. Because with
okay.
that, I'm hearing a journey in terms of questioning, well, if this is what being girly means, if I'm
Mm,
not that, what does that make me and stuff?
mm,
How do you feel about the notion in terms of being comfortable with your femininity?
mm, mm,
Do you feel you have struggled with that or had a challenge with that? Because some of what I'm
mm,
hearing and what I've heard before too of like being
mm,
girly or feminine, sometimes the messaging behind that is to be weak or a victim. And so
yeah.
sometimes women will be like, oh, no, 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 I'm strong. I can do it myself. And
Mm,
because I don't want to be a victim, and obviously being a woman or being feminine would make me vulnerable to be attacked,
mm,
kind of thing.
mm, mm,
So, and then that would then further go into either wanting to not implement or look like what they're claiming girly should look like, which is wearing certain colors or doing
mm,
makeup or grooming a certain way and things like that. So how has,
mm,
with that notion, when it comes to your relationship with your femininity or balancing your femininity
mm,
with your
mm,
masculinity, how has that been for you?
mm, yeah. Yeah, it's been I don't know. Like I guess it depends on I guess like the day, right? I feel like some days you want to be more girly, sometimes you don't, kind of thing. But I do know that it in the past, if I've had to like dress up a lot for something and like, oh, I have to wear all this makeup and all this stuff and everything, um I guess I don't feel most comfortable. I don't know if it's because I'm not like I don't wear makeup all the time, but if I have to like dress up and dress all pretty and everything, I'm always kind of like and obviously when you dress up, people tend to give you more attention, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes that attention, I know all women are used to this where some question like I don't know if I want that much attention from
Mhm.
guys, you know what I mean? Because sometimes it can be uncomfortable and you don't know what it means, you know.
Mhm.
There's also the time where you did dress up really pretty for some event and then like nothing happens, you don't meet anyone. So it's kind of like, what's the point then, right? But then of course you want to wear nice things just because you want to. I guess I don't know. For me, sometimes I'm like, if I'm just gonna go do something and hang out, but like on my own or with like, why do I have to like, I don't know, wear all this makeup and dress myself up like if I don't feel like it, right? Um, and so yeah, and I kind of and I think I've had times where even like yeah, I'll be wearing more like boyish clothes, I guess you could say, and yeah, and you'd have like parents be like, oh, like I like why don't you dress like it's like there's always been some as an issue with the way I dress sometimes. Like for me, I kind of think I put comfort over how pretty I look or
Mhm.
whatever. And sometimes I've had reactions to to that where it's like, oh, why can't you dress more like this or
Mhm.
like oh this or like oh well you have such pretty whatever or this is really pretty on you so why don't you do this to make yourself look
Mhm.
more I don't know more like a girl I don't know
Yeah.
and for me I don't know I'm like I'm just me I don't know how else to it's still kind of like figuring and as I've gotten older I just do what I want to if I want to wear makeup I will if I want to wear a dress I will if not then I won't I think
Mhm.
and for me even wearing a dress is almost like a convenience thing like it's just so like I can just slip it on and no problem right
Mhm.
um but yeah, still kind of getting. And then also, if I haven't worn dressed up for a long time, and then I dress up, I sometimes feel a bit weird about or subconscious a little bit because I'm like, I don't want people looking at me. This is a bit
Mhm.
too much, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think and it ebbs and flows. I think when I was in college, I did a lot more dress up stuff. I feel like as I got older, I'm just like, oh, I don't care anymore. But in college, I think I wore a lot more quote unquote girly, some girly outfits, I guess, maybe. Maybe tried to do the makeup thing more. I think or try to. I mean, I think every girl, a lot of girls can relate. Well, some girls can relate to how, like, if you have a crush on someone, you like wear something to get more attention,
Mhm.
kind of thing. Um, yeah, and sometimes that, well, and then yeah. I think, yeah, it was college where I tried to, yeah, dress up more, maybe experiment more with makeup, things like that. But for the most part, and then also with even the way my personality too. I'm not like I'm not really like a quiet, shy person really. And I know sometimes as a woman that's how you're supposed to be, I guess. But for me, it's like I'm okay with like speaking up and like I'm okay with like laughing loud or saying loud or even like I remember one time I like to eat a lot. Okay, I love to eat. I can't eat as much as I used to, but I love to eat. And I remember I know that's a thing too for girls where oh you're supposed to only eat salad or you're not supposed to eat like a guy. And I remember I even had a guy friend one time being like, wow, you eat so much, man. Like you eat more than I do or something like that. And I'm kind of like, what's wrong with me eating more than a guy? Like, why can't I eat whatever? Like, I'm not the type to, if I want to eat, I'm going to eat. I'm not going to like not eat a certain way because there's a guy there. Who cares? Like
Mhm.
that, that's kind of how,
Yeah.
I am where I'm I'll say what I need to say and I'll try to get others to like, or try to give advice and things like that. Um, and I'm okay with being like firm about stuff or being very like, kind of thing. Um, and yeah, and I do think that there I guess there have been times where maybe a guy has tried to help with something or whatever, but and I felt uncomfortable about that. Like I was like,
Mhm.
it's okay, I mean, you can help me, but like I can do it myself, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, it's interesting. What about you, Dagny? How has your
Yeah.
uh
I think in
feel
terms
been with
of
that?
in terms of growing into expressing my gender the way I want to. Yes, I'm a woman.
Yeah.
As a kid, it was not really a confusion thing, I think, in terms of the way I dress, or if I am playing basketball or doing dancing, ballet. It's like it's normal to be able to do both, sort of thing. I think it became more of a thing, uh, maybe late teens and moving on, where I would note more of I'm observing more how other women are expressing themselves, and seeing there seems to be more and more of a focus on you're expressing yourself for the sake of getting attention, in particular getting men's attention. And I do recall, like, yes, in college I would question, noting that, well, I'm not questioning whether or not I'm beautiful, because we already know that we are. But I am questioning.
I know. Come on, we know. Damn.
Indeed. But I am questioning the way I express myself is actually authentic. I'm not trying to act for certain attention. And maybe sometimes I can come across as childlike if I'm comfortable, or very blunt and straightforward if you're strangers and I can't tell whether you are safe or not. And sometimes I would question, like, so is that not considered cute enough? Is that not considered fun enough? Is because I wear glasses? Like, why I'm noting a difference in the way people will interact with me and interact with other women. And I'm not questioning how they are choosing to dress or express themselves or behave, but I'm trying to get a sense of, like, so how do I continue to be authentic? But I also want to hang out with the group too. Like, we can invite me too, like, am I doing something wrong? Because at that time I really would always blame myself, as opposed to taking note of, like, no, there's nothing wrong. It's just you probably don't resonate with those particular people, and it's fine.
Yeah.
So then fast forward to me gradually seeing that I need to cultivate my own version of my balance of femininity and masculinity, my own version of sexy, my own version of feeling safe, my own version of embodying the delicious goddess that I have within me, because
of course
the messaging I'm getting is not resonating with me, of like, I should always be either one side of, you should be as bland as possible so that nobody will come and attack you, or the other side, you should look like that character from Who Shot Roger Rabbit. You know, the cartoon with real people, and the girl is like in a red dress with one eye all the time.
Yes, I think Brad Pitt was in that one, wasn't he?
I forget who. Yeah, but she's always like,
wasn't she? She had like huge thing with red mane of hair, and she was just like Miss Sexy Vixen or whatever.
In the red glitter dress with one eye, and like she's always on her tippy toes and always whispering. Like, that's the only two options you have.
Yeah, like, what is that? Like, why did she whisper?
Those are the only two options I have to express myself as a woman. So choose one of them and go with it. And I'm like, so I feel like I deserve more than just these two options. And so I continued embodying that for myself, of like, well, I need to be able to really accept and be comfortable with myself before that can reflect back to the people who can accept me for how I am. And I took note that it was when it comes to the being comfortable with my femininity, I took note that I actually had to do a lot of inner work to get back into that balance, because I actually had been leaning more into my masculinity, because that is what would get more praise. As in, I'm doing everything. I don't need help. I deliver the grades. I deliver the work. I deliver this. I deliver that. I'm self-sufficient and independent, which is great. That's wonderful. And then, but then the feminine side of, like, well, actually, I'm actually feeling tired today. There's no time to be tired, like that. So then it's like, okay, never mind. I'll just, pretend to be a robot. Like, and that's it. So it took work for me to be like, actually, I need to embrace both. My feminine side is feeling neglected
Neglected.
and
Hmm.
feeling like, I mean, I can be strong and powerful while also being soft. And it's
Hmm.
okay to ask for help. Yes, sometimes you might be disappointed because it's true. I probably could do it better, but we need to practice receiving the help and allowing people to show up for you in the way they can,
Hmm.
sort of thing. And I noted doing that work, which is a combination of, okay, you read certain stuff and just pick out what resonates with you. Then trying to be like, okay, let me look at my wardrobe and see how can I embody that with what I wear? How can I do that with how my space feels? How can I just spend more time just being present and allowing myself to just be in my body, like lean back into my body, which
Hmm.
then lend itself to being at this time where I feel more of a better balance between my masculine and feminine, a better balance of
Hmm.
discernment of when it's time to lean back and receive and when it's time to actually just go for it. But both times I never feel like I'm giving my power away. And I think that was always
Yeah.
the issue for me, that the feminine part to me was like, oh, but it's not like, I always felt like I need to protect my feminine because
Yeah.
it feels like if I don't, it would be taken advantage of, sort of thing.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Hmm.
which I guess will be a segue to the next part of this conversation of
Hmm.
the societal norms and how we deal with that, where
Hmm.
unfortunately, we do live in a world where just the feminine is like Bambi, the deer, who like is
Hmm.
really vulnerable and technically could be pounced and attacked at any moment in time and really
Hmm.
doesn't have much of a self-defense situation for it. So my
Yeah.
masculine was not like, oh, because I'm trying to be a man or I want to be a man. It was more like, well, this is my way to protect my feminine because who else is going to do that for me?
Hmm.
Obviously, and then the added
Hmm.
deal of you're also a Black woman who, in certain cultures and in certain countries, your feminine doesn't even exist because you're supposed to
Yeah.
just be strong or whatever, anyways, and that's not even
Hmm.
you're not even allowed the privilege to rest or be soft
Hmm.
or receive.
Hmm.
So, or to be beautiful or to consider yourself worthy of desires.
Yeah.
So it was a quite a I don't know if one should say this is radical, but I think for the inner
Hmm.
work, I think it really caused a shift for me in terms of how I hold space for myself and hold space for others when I see people also trying to balance that and possibly swinging from one spectrum to the other, not
Yeah.
because they don't believe in both sides, but I think also due to also how I felt of like, well, if you want to get ahead, you're taught that one side does that more than the other side, kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I see what you mean there because I think even things like being vulnerable and things like that, I always I'm kind of like I don't think I should like there's not many people that I would show vulnerable sides to kind of thing, and even if other people have shown a vulnerable side to me, I'm more comfortable comforting people. Like if someone
Mm,
is like crying, going through something, I think I'm quite good at to comfort them. But if I'm the one, like I don't like crying in public.
yeah.
You will never see me cry. Like I think a lot of my friends have never seen me cry before because I
Mm,
don't let them see me. Like I'm the kind of person where I'll be laughing and joking and I'll in front of you. And then later, when no one's around and I'm like in the shower, then I'll have my crying,
mm,
sobbing fest. That's kind of how, because I feel like I shouldn't be, showing it to people, right?
mm, mm,
Um, so I don't know if that's also connected to that as well.
mm,
And I do like what you said about yeah, I think in school is where it happens, where yeah, you see girls doing all these things like, should I be doing that? And like I don't really
as well
resonate
as
with
the
that.
reactions
And
that they get in terms of
from
how
it, yes,
boys are
exactly,
reacting to
yeah.
it, how other girls are
Mhm.
reacting to it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and it's true, and people making like or snide remarks or you notice too I mean, I guess like you notice how guys act a certain way with like the way certain girls act, like guys act a certain way, and I noticed that this I think in college too, where sometimes like men would act a certain way with girls, but they wouldn't act that way with me, kind of thing, which
Mm,
I guess because my energy is different,
mm,
and yeah, and for me, it's always kind of been like like I almost don't like. like, well, I think we talked about this before, but like the connotations of like, just because I'm a female, people put all of these things on me, or these assumptions on me, and I'm like, I don't want to be in that box, like that
Mm-hmm.
box of like, oh, you're a female and you do this. Like I'm just Damali, like the female and like all of that stuff. I'm like, I'm just me, and I just do what I like, and I'm into what I'm, into,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And I think through my life I have had people kind of not fully, understanding me, or not fully on the same like wavelength of where I am, and I'm like, well, that's okay, just because you are different and you don't,
Mm-hmm.
see things the way that I do. And I also want to bring up what you said about the spectrum is either you're like super like bland and quite, you don't talk to any guys at all, or you have to be this like sexy vixen all the time, and it's like there's one or the other, and both get
Mm-hmm.
judged, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
wallflower, right?
Yes.
And it makes me think about how women are portrayed in movies and books, and
Mm-hmm.
how like we're like and men too, right? Like the butt of the joke kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
like, and then all those movies that are trying to do the, these types of girls versus the other types of, and like, and it just, and we're always seen as like, oh, we just like pink, or we're just catty and stupid, or we care about our emotions, or we're just needy and we're doing all this stuff, and it's kind of like, I think I use my brain. I'm pretty sure I have a brain and I use it, the way I think about stuff. And then even comments you see, I mean, the internet, I always feel like the internet is not really a real place, because people just be
Mm-hmm.
saying whatever behind a screen. But whenever you have these conversations about relationships and stuff, like, it's like women are always saying the same recurring things, and I don't really understand. Like, it's like, oh, I'm in this like really bad situation, or like, oh, I keep on going back to someone that's bad for me. Like, I don't know, like sometimes and then the man bashing too, that we
Mm-hmm.
seem to be doing a lot. Like, I don't really resonate with that. I don't know why
Right.
all we're doing is just bashing men all the time, and men this, men that, and then the men turn around and bash the women, and like, oh, we hate
Mm.
you because of this, and you do, and all this stuff. And I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, can y'all do your inner work, please? Like, can
Yes.
you deal with,
And that, you know what?
kind of
That's a
thing?
perfect segue. Let's
You
talk
know,
about
that's a
the
segue.
content that has, I feel it's been there forever, but definitely has become
Hmm.
even more
Hmm.
potent on social media, from YouTube to Instagram to TikTok, whatever.
Yeah.
When it comes to the relationship coach, the intimacy coach,
Yes.
dating coach,
Yes.
the
Oh
marriage
my
coach, how to
gosh.
get the high value person coach, how to
Coach.
take a red or blue pill coach. Like, let's
Coach.
no, like it's just
Man.
I've noted, because I'm a curious person. So I will
Hmm.
take
Hmm.
note of stuff. I feel like in order to evolve and grow, you need to be able to look at perspectives you may not fully disagree, to just get a sense of where this person's coming
Exactly.
from. Where are other people coming
Yes.
from? What are other people consuming? So I can understand where everyone else's head is at, And I take note that there's like two versions I've taken note in terms of themes. There's one that's very much into, you need to dress this way. This is where you go to
Hmm.
find these types of people. These are the color nails you should
Yes.
have. Here's the
Hmm.
indirect backwards question you should ask to test them 3 days after you blinked your eyes. Like all this kind of stuff, which unfortunately does come across as being very manipulative and very
Yeah.
much into like
Shallow.
dark, shallow, but also like dark psychology of like, you really are out here playing games to get people to do what you want to do, to get people to be obsessed with you, to get people to do these
Hmm.
weird stuff that I think further perpetuates this low vibration of you filling a void
Hmm.
with people instead of filling a void with your soul. While
Oh,
there's another,
work bars. Bars.
we're going to drop it. We're going to drop it
We're gonna be
100.
here.
Okay. While
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
another theme that I do appreciate, which I hope there's more of them. I just haven't seen all of them, where they're
Hmm.
like, we're going to focus on you. We're going
Hmm.
to focus on your self-image. We're going to focus on, I understand you're
Yes.
pining for connection. I understand you're pining for a relationship. Now let's dig
Hmm.
deeper. And where is that pining coming from? Is it coming from
Yes.
all the Disney princesses you grew up with? Okay, let's disentangle that. Is it coming from your family insisting that your value is only shown when you are a parent, when you are married? Okay, let's
Hmm.
disentangle that and make sure that you are really, truly cultivating your self image and your self worth in a way that having relationships is a pleasant plus. not
Mm-hmm.
the only
A
thing
game.
you need. It's a gain that you actually are focused on being the most magnificent partner that anybody would have a privilege to be with. And that level of love and intimacy is something you hold space and share with every interaction, not siphoned off with just this one person you should be in a cage with, but is actually like for the
Not in a
blessing of
cage.
community. For the blessing of
In a
community,
cage.
that's where it's at. And so for
Mhm.
me, and like I feel like that is more important, and that actually probably solves more of the issues that people are having.
Mhm.
So then, but then, like you noted, of like when we look at that stuff, why do I feel like I don't resonate with it? In particular, when it comes to how
Yeah.
we're supposed to communicate, because we insist that even though we're speaking English, apparently women speak a different English compared to what men speak English, or
Mm.
people who identify as women speak a different English than people who identify as men are speaking a different English. And I don't like this notion of they make it seem that, oh, women are not direct. Apparently, we go all around three elephants to tell
Right?
you that we're hungry by saying we're not hungry. And I'm like, no, that's not
No.
how it works. And so what's funny is that when you are a woman who doesn't do that, like for me, I will directly tell you, you know what, this interaction is feeling one-sided. How are we going to deal with that? Just to let you know, that's
Tell
what
you
I'm
to your
feeling.
face, sir.
That's how I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling. So let's open up the conversation, and I'm going to give you space to let me know, how are we going to deal with that? And that's fine if you
Mm-hmm.
want to give me a whole story of an excuse as to why this has been one-sided and you haven't done anything about it. But I'm also going to take
Mm-hmm.
note of, okay, with your behavior, demonstrate to me, do you want to continue this being one-sided or not? And if you
Mm-hmm.
want to continue one-sided, then that shows instead of, you're going to pull up or move out of the way. If you want this to be one-sided, that
Yep.
means you're
Yep.
moving out of the way.
Yep.
And then
Mm-hmm.
that's it. But the notion that, well, as women, I'm not going to tell you this is one-sided. And so I'm going to say indirectly, the times when don't bring flowers, it kind of makes me feel like I'm not a flower. And that's why, and then
No.
somehow that means the high value person would be able to decode what that means. And I'm like, that's unfortunate if that's what we're teaching. Because to be honest, that's really manipulative to make it seem like
Yeah.
you shouldn't really listen to what women are saying because they're never really saying what they need. They're always going to say it in a
Mm-hmm.
backhanded way. And I'm like, no,
Like, that's not true.
that's not what I'm doing. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of
Mm-mm.
other women are not doing. And then for men, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, actually, they never really say anything because they can't really say stuff. So you just allowed them to not say stuff. And I'm like, no,
What
I think
are you
they too
saying?
can say
Right?
more. And I just feel that, so unfortunately, a lot of that content I feel is further perpetuating people to deprive themselves of the intimacy, the connections, the abundance, and the love that they deserve, because it just further
Yeah.
wants you to wear a mask and play
Mm-hmm.
games with people instead of understanding how your strength and being vulnerable with the right people, showing up with the right people, being comfortable saying no. Like, actually, I really love this. I really thank you for your time, but it's a no for me right now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. You don't have to kill the person just because they rejected you. Maybe it's just for right now,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
level of, are you mentally stable? Are you emotionally stable? Should be more of the focus when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to how gender should be interacting in relationships, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to how can I get one up or manipulate this person out of what I want to get from them.
Okay, to piggyback off of that, I like what you said about what was it that you said? I'm forgetting now.
Wow.
Oh yeah, women are seen as aggressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if they're too direct. Like I've heard this from like other other friends before, where it's like when women are tough something and say what they want to say, they're seen as aggressive. But if
Mm-hmm.
a man does it, it's fine. And then we like to use it as a kind of like insult, like, oh, you're being that seems to be a new thing online too, about like, oh, well, no, the women are all masculine now, so
Mm-hmm.
we don't want them. And it's like, wait, what does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. And it's true. I also have I guess in life have had the situation of like maybe I'm being too loud for people, or taking up too much space, or being annoying, or being very like all these things that like I guess a woman is not supposed to be, kind of thing. And then also it made me think about how women and men are portrayed in movies and books and how like the damsel in distress and all of this. And as I've gotten older, I kind of I like the stories of women who have more agency. Like the man and the woman are communicating not as man and woman, but as humans. You're just communicating in a real way. Like I'm, in a and because people are complex, right? And then made me think of that old movie. It came out in 2001. I know this dates us with how old we are, but it was a movie. I don't know if some of you other, millennials out there know the movie Two Can Play That Game, which was with Vivica A. Fox, Gabrielle Union, Anthony Anderson, Monique, Morris Chestnut, right? They were all in those movies, right? And basically in the movie is I think Vivica Fox like guru type person that knows exactly how to deal with men and knows all the games they play. And then I think Morris Chestnut goes ahead and like is seen with Gabrielle Union at a bar somewhere, but we don't really know if anything happened or not. And then Vivica Fox does this whole thing. And then Anthony Anderson is like wait, I can't, would it be the foil? Not the foil. He would be like, I guess the opposite of her because he's trying to give advice to Morris Chestnut about, oh, well, if she's playing this game, then you need to do this game kind of thing. Or, oh, she did this, well, then you have to do this, you know? And another movie that makes me think of it is Hitch, also Hitch with Will Smith. And both those movies are kind of like how here's these 10 things or 20 things to do to get the girl with the guy kind of thing. And then I think at the end of both movies, I think it kind of shows that life is not a game. I think that's kind of obvious by the end because everyone ends up together with the person they want to be with, and the playing the games didn't really end up like working out kind of thing. So I think that's important because like it isn't a game. Like everyone is an individual. You can't put like oh well all men are like this or all women are like this, or I'm like we can't really do that because not everyone fits in those boxes. But I just thought it was funny because like that movie when we watched it when we were younger 20 years ago, it was like, oh, this is so funny, what is but now that I'm older, I don't know if I could watch that movie without cringing, you know? Because it's so, and then this idea that, oh, whoever breaks up with the other person first wins. And I'm like, these are real humans. Like we're.
Mm.
So it made me think of that when you brought up the how like we're portrayed in movies and how we have a lot of guru people or you influencers being like, oh, here are, if you text these three messages, then you'll get the guy, or if you do this, kind of. And even with the dating apps, it kind of it makes it seem like it's like people are like games. Like this is like a pinball
Mm.
machine, and you just throw this thing, and then you get the guy, you get the girl, kind of thing. And I'm not bashing it. I'm older now, so I know better. But I know when I was younger, I sometimes followed some of that stuff. Like I
Mm.
would do the thing where, oh, I'll just go to a library and just look at the books, and then I'll just bump into some great guy. You know what I mean? Like, or you put those, affirmations kind of thing
Mm.
about what all these things,
Mhm.
and like, or oh, maybe if you go to all of these different events, and I've done the speed dating thing before, girls, like I know how that works. um but it's always kind of I don't know. I mean, I made some friends at the end of that. Like it's always like you make friends with the other girls that also went there, kind of thing. um but of course you find out that that's not really life really works, right? Because and I think it's definitely a big topic now. And then when you add in all the stuff we know now about it, about the differences of sex and gender, all the different gender identities and how people identify, it's just been really mixed up. And then also I read an interesting thing. I think because people think that, oh, well, but there's some joke they made like, oh, people shouldn't be dating. Don't come in the dating pool because weird things are swimming in here. It's all poisonous. Like, don't come in here and all this stuff. And but I read somewhere where actually no, like dating is not as different as we think it is. Like we make it seem like it's some huge like everyone is horrible and the world's ending, but actually no, it's just obviously careers have changed and views on marriage and career have changed and things like that. But what has changed, of course, is the social media aspect, where I do think social media plays a big part in making people think they're living in like a fantasy type
Mm,
world, or where we treat people like the Sims or like Barbie
mm,
dolls kind of thing. And then and to I guess, well, this is segueing a little bit into the, I guess, the trend thing that we
mm,
have, where we're always like making jokes about things like, oh, like, red flags, or, like I saw like this video about a guy who had all these green flags, and he was trying to give all these green flags to this girl, and then there was a guy behind her waving a red flag, like this huge red
mm,
flag, and he was
mhm.
waving it around, and she's like, "Oh, sorry, I gotta go," and she runs to the guy with the red flag,
Oh dear,
and I'm
no.
just like,
Yeah.
I know it's supposed to be funny, but then you see
Hmm.
the vitriol in the comments, and
Mm,
people are like, "This is why they say nice guys finish last," and all this like
mm,
stuff, and I'm kind of like, I honestly think that when people have done their healing work and they're mature and they are true to themselves and they have insight into who they are, that is what's real. And that's how you can attract real people, that flesh and blood people, and willing to put the work in for whatever type of relationship you have. I feel like when you're still kind of not there yet and you're figuring yourself out and you're too consumed by the social media, I think that's when it makes it seem like life is like this big game.
mm,
So yeah, so that was one point. But then to segue again, I think now we can talk more about I guess the how gender norms have changed. Like, how was it in the beginning and how is it
mhm,
now, and like
mhm,
how has it been influenced?
mhm.
So Dagny, do you want to start with that? How do you think we have changed with how
Indeed.
how it started with gender, and then how it has become what it is now, and how other
Right.
generations have been
Yeah, I
influenced
think
by
this
it?
is
So
this is an interesting
yeah.
point because I think it does reflect the tension that's happening right now, where I feel like we're
Yes.
transitioning as a cycle in terms of how we are expressing gender identity and what we are accepting as. So,
Mhm.
right now, up until this point, the conversation has been okay, the gender norms that we've lived through, that have kind of been in existence for maybe since the beginning of colonization. So, insisting
Mhm.
that women are in this box, men are in this box, and that's it.
Yes.
But as we have access to knowledge and history, we take note that before colonization, that was actually not the case. So when you
Mhm.
look at, and we will link a few articles that we found in the show notes for this, because we found an article about how gender identity was within the continent of Africa before colonization. And in particular, how colonizers who traveled to Africa insisted on writing off what they were observing as being deviant or sinful or paganism stuff. But what they were observing was, oh, women have multiple wives and multiple husbands. Men have multiple wives and multiple husbands. And instead of actually trying to ask these ancient or previous Africans for them to actually explain how they're dealing with their communities, they just looked at that and automatically labeled it as deviant or a problem. While when you look at, if you do study ancient African history, which I did do a few classes on that in
Mhm.
previous chapters of my life, taking note that a lot of those sorts of relationships was not necessarily needing to label them as their orientation or who they want to sleep with
Yeah.
is correlating with that, but it was actually more of this is a representation of their wealth, that this person can have so many wives and so many husbands regardless of their gender, and that also women and men who identify as women as and men are almost equal, or are allowed to have autonomy and make real decisions. And then
Mhm.
there's also a fluidity on, even though they were born, there's a third element too, where they are in between man and woman. And it's okay, even though they might have been born a man or born a woman, but they are dressing a certain way and are allowed to do that, which is normal. Then there's another article that we found where it's actually listing that on different parts of the planet, from Latin America to Asia to back to Africa as well, where you see this happening as well, either with the gods that they are worshiping. A lot of them, they're gods who carry both genders, or they are a third element of a gender that is not confined to one or the other. And then their own people sometimes, oh, if they're the person who is delegated to do the worshiping or delegated to do stuff, they are dressing androgynous for a certain reason. Or if they're boys who seem to look more girly, they're dressing a certain way for that reason. But it's still primarily an expression of gender. It's not saying that their sexual orientation is a certain way or that their sex is a different thing. But the expression of gender was accepted as being more fluid. And throughout history, you take note that the only people who seemed really triggered by this were the colonizers. They were the only ones writing it off as if this is the most disgusting, deviant, pagan, sinful. We must wash all of this. So let's bring our missionaries to wash them of this terrible thing that they're doing. They were the only ones who seemed so triggered and disgusted by this. And then then they created a certain construct for gender that they are more comfortable with and insisted that everybody else should subscribe to it. Now you fast forward to now. And even though, yes, the rest of the world had to subscribe to it, because if you don't, you get your arms chopped off while they're still extracting rubber, or you get your head chopped off, or they're extracting your minerals. Like, they still insist that's an excuse to disrespect you, brutalize you, abuse you, and exploit you because you're not conforming to what we think gender should be.
Yeah.
So then now you fast forward where, okay, yes, now everyone is having an issue because people are reclaiming the fluidity of gender. And government is having an issue grappling with that. Society is having an issue grappling with that. They're all triggered by it because that's a problem, because that means the system that we've been benefiting from is crippling. And that's a threat. Because if we allow you to be fluid with gender, next thing you're going to be fluid with your intellectual freedom, and then fluid with your physical freedom. And then now we cannot possibly continue to oppress you if you just start being fluidity free in every aspect of your life.
No control.
We got to stamp on this. We got to suppress this before it gets further into more of a threat for that system. But even with that, we take note that the West has a certain idea of how you should act with your friends, how you should act with your family, how you can how can you display affection, what's appropriate. Well, when you go outside, either throughout the global South, whether it's Latin America, Africa, Asia, the Middle East, the islands, we are holding hands regardless of your gender. We will be kissing each other regardless if we're family or not. We are holding each other, giving hugs, because we really want you to feel and know that we've missed you. And we really are glad we're seeing you right now, even though the last time we saw you was 2 days ago. But we got to understand, we need you to feel the love right now, So that level of, and I do think that also connects to like when people say like, oh yeah, when I visit this country, it just feels so warm. Like I just feel the warmth, And I'm like, yes, that's not only because it doesn't snow there, but it's also because regardless of you trying to colonize and stamp out the soul and the spice and the flavor of these people, they still were able to maintain that level of love and gratitude and hospitality and holding space for each other and displaying that through affection with each other. Even though they are still having to grapple with, they still are grappling with this gender fluidity because they're still having to balance. You were colonized with a system to feel a certain way, and that system is still in place. So unfortunately, even though it's an interesting dynamic, because even though, oh yes, we're holding hands and hugging more, the notion of people wanting to conform differently to gender in some countries is a crime, even though that country was colonized to believe that this is a problem when before it was not. So it's a very it's a quite a disgusting dynamic to see what colonization, the shadow of colonization can still do to allow you to oppress your own people in the name of what colonizers claimed you should not be doing in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Yeah.
how I see, in a big cowrie shell nutshell,
Okay.
how this gender fluidity dynamic has evolved with time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. It's a very big conversation. And to piggyback off of that,
Go
really
ahead and take the
piggyback
pigs.
off
Take all the pigs. All right.
well, the one point I like is what you said about the like how before it was fluid. Like fluidity is not a new thing. Like the whole, and it didn't mean, oh, you were gay or not gay, or you're a woman or you're not. It's just the roles that you had. And then it made me think of this show I like loved. It's ended now. It's called Supernatural. I don't know if you guys know it or not, but it's a great show. And in Supernatural, the point I wanted to make is that the angels angels and the demons in the show didn't have one sex. Like the angels, sometimes the angels would come down, and apparently because angels, like humans, apparently in the show, humans can't look at angels, or like apparently angels are too bright and light that they like will burn out your eyes or something dramatic like that.
I mean,
And then for demons, they're
that
just
sounds pretty logical. That sounds pretty logical.
yeah. I mean, okay, Eric Kripke, okay, writers, you know. And yeah, so every time, like, so when the angels are first introduced, it's like people's eyes are getting burnt out and they're exploding because they can't handle, like, it's too much for them. And so that the angels can talk to the humans, they have to go into another human and kind of possess them. Anyway, watch the show. And so, like, in the show, the angels are not women or female or anything. They're just doing what they have to do. Sometimes they're in women's bodies, sometimes they're in men's bodies, kind of thing. And there's no like, but it doesn't change who you are, right? Or what you're saying or what you're talking about, kind of. So it made me think of that. It also, and then the androgyny thing too. I think I wanted to make another point first, and then I'll go back to that. But for me, I'm a really big, like, we were talking about K-dramas and everything, and I'm a really big K-pop fan, everything. And Korea is one of those places where I find that a lot of people that are from the West are not as used to the way that they show affection. Of course you can, I mean, I don't know all the research about it. From what I've seen, a lot of the like some of the Korean stars are very even though they have platonic friendships, but they're very close to each other. Like they're very touchy. That you would have men and men will be holding hands or feeding each other or sitting in each other's laps, lying down, like sleeping in the same bed. And it's not they're not gay. It's not. I don't think all of them are like this. It's not a sexual thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's just that's how they show they care, kind of thing. And also even like for me seeing it, I mean I think both of us are very open people. So anything I see, I'm very open with it. But even for me, it's like, man, they hug each other more than I hug my friends, or they kiss each other more than like they do it more than me, and I'm a girl, like you know what I mean? And also and I think guys like, and there it's normal actually for Korean men to do that. No one thinks that you are attracted to someone just because you're touching each other and everything. And it kind of, and for me it shows that platonic relationships and friendships are just as important, I think, than as romance ones, especially if you are in a very intense situation. Like for a lot of these, like for example, to go into K-pop a bit, a lot of these like K-pop groups, like you spend more time with these people than with your own family, right? And anything you go through, all your ups and downs, the sadness, all these, of course, if you are in a group with people and as a K-pop person, you barely see your family. Like you never, like you're so busy, all you have, and I guess I'll say specifically, I'll talk about BTS because I'm an ARMY. Okay, I said, okay, now it's revealed I'm an ARMY. But like like you're with each other all the time, no matter if you're sad or happy or whatever, you're in the same place all the time. So of course you're going to be very close to the people around you, right? And so for them in particular, they are kind of like a family and they're very close. And there are certain times where, you see them hugging or holding hands, or if one is crying, the other one is comforting them, and they're very like, and it's not, and they're very touchy and everything, but they're not like with each other. That's just the way they show that they care. But I think it's important because I think like you should have friends that are open, like, right? Like I feel like it shouldn't just be, women need to have someone to cry on, or I mean, men have emotions I don't know why we act as if men are supposed to be like, men have emotions too. Men get hurt too. So
Mm-hmm.
who talks to men when they're feeling down? Who
Mm-hmm.
talks to them when they're sad? Who,
Mm-hmm.
and the issue of this is that if you are not able to be in tune with your emotions, that can cause a problem in other
Mm-hmm.
parts of your life too. And I think and I think I'm always kind of like, I guess because I'm an army, but I'm always touched by that where I'm like, yeah, like you can be close to your platonic friends too, right? And I think that that is now that would be in like the gender thing where,
Mm.
and that shows obviously it's very fluid, right? And other countries are act differently, and then what always strikes me as is kind of the people that are not from there. I mean, they're saying all of these like rude things or things they don't understand about them, like, oh my God, they're all gay, or like what's going on, all this stuff, and make all these weird narratives about things that are maybe not true, but kind of thing. Um, and then I also think too, the other point I was going to make before I got to this other point
All
was
right. All
this kind
right.
of trend that we're getting and with celebrities and media where people may or may not be gay, but they use it to sell their stuff.
Mm.
And then we have like celebrities wearing all these interesting things that they're not really into, but they do it to get
Yeah.
fans to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think and then the whole androgyny thing too, where
Mm.
like this like weird kind of thing where like if guys act all cute and act like girls, like everyone's like all like, oh my gosh, kind of thing, but you would never date a guy like that, things like
Mm.
that. Um, or what's it called? Or even or you have like, I think there was some controversy. I think it was Harry Styles. I think that he wore a dress or something, and like, all the girls are still all crazy about him and everything. And I think there was a think piece about like about that, how it was like all these girls are screaming, but you would never date a guy in a dress. Like that's what one
Mm.
comment had said, kind of thing. And I think that it just brings up a good point where sometimes for the celebrity part and for the trends and everything, it's cool to you know, like use gender fluidity for sales. Like you're not, like, let's say you're not fluid, but you act like, well, this is what it means to be gender fluid. I'll just be a guy wearing a dress,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that's not really what it means, kind of thing. And then all these memes and jokes about it, about like, oh well, I identify as a chair, so I'm gonna, like, all these like
Mm-hmm.
all these like dumb
Mm-hmm.
like jokes that we make, and I don't think it moves the needle further. And then also this obsession people have of labeling people.
Yes.
Like it's like people want to catch people on, oh, you see, he watched a movie so he must be gay, or oh, he has a rainbow jacket, so he must be, we're so. And I thought fluid meant that fluid, you can go wherever you don't have to be labeled for it, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then and also how we make things like it's a new thing. Like if guys are wearing makeup and things, like, oh well, they're wearing makeup, so they must be. And I'm like, okay, Prince,
Mm-hmm.
okay, Bowie, okay, all these
Mm-hmm.
people, Michael Jackson, all these kind of
Mm-hmm.
androgynous type,
Right.
really awesome celebrities that people like loved and were so
Mm-hmm.
interested in. And then now we're still using it as like a joke if guys are wearing makeup, or guys are,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I always find that kind of interesting, how like even though we've kind of grown, we still are not fully grown, like, with all the strange comments we have coming out and things like that. And so I think it's interesting to and for, I guess it's interesting for me, because for me, I think I'm quite an open person. I'm kind of, hey, do you do what you got to do, hey. So it's interesting to see people that are so angry about it, or so kind of everyone is so triggered by, oh, why does it look like this, or why does it look like, like that kind of thing. And then also there's the other side of it, of how we do the token thing. Like there'll be some movies where like some movies about if you're bi or gay and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then like they make the character as if they're now being gay. Like that's literally their whole personality in the movie. And that's not, I don't think that helps
Mm-hmm.
anyone. Like they're real people. They just have, like, being gay is a part of who they are, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also there was actually in my lovely Supernatural show, there was a gay character, and it was great because she was complex. Like she just happened to be gay, but she was complex, she was fleshed out, she had wants and dreams and all of these things. And I think that that helps us more in media than like just doing this like fake surface stuff
Mhm.
about gender fluidity or being gay or not or straight or whatever, and then are these like jokes where it's like, oh my God, people are straight phobic now and all this stuff and like
Mhm.
straight, and it's just this constant thing of like pitting people against each other, I think is and then there's no kind of space for people like us, I guess. I think we talked about this too, where if you're not a part of the LGBTQ um, field, then we're not talking about you, kind of
Right.
thing. Like we're kind of like, and for us who like, I mean, obviously, I am a woman, kind of thing. I'm straight and everything, but I don't subscribe to all the things that the gender boxes are about, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I'm not in that kind of like field, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think it's like it's almost like there's a separate field. I guess because you really put us in a box. So and
Yeah.
it seems that the media and people and the public we like boxes and
Mhm.
labels for some reason, even though we claim that we're trying to be more fluid and be more open and all of these things. But then it doesn't really match because when you see people reacting to it, it's not really,
Mhm.
that's not really what we're doing, even though fluidity is not, it's actually not a new thing, actually. But we act like it's like some new thing that we've discovered, and it seems that people don't fully understand it. And also when I talk about the femininity part, it makes me think of Stepford Wives, the
Mm.
old one or the new one,
Yes.
or the Don't Worry, Darling, where
Mhm.
this thing about, or what's the other? Oh, The Handmaid's Tale is another one
Yeah.
that shows how, oh, women are supposed to be this, or they should only
Mm.
be like this, and if you're not that, then we're gonna,
Mhm.
take it away from you. Um, and not only women, I think the patriarchy thing has an issue for men too, because
Mhm.
for men, like you're supposed to like beer and be like strong and muscular and masculine and all this stuff, and
Mhm.
don't show any weaknesses and all this stuff, which I think is damaging for them too. The way we talk about it is very interesting, right? Because everyone has the feminine side and the masculine side. Everyone has that, but we make it seem it's like we have to be one or the other, or else no, we can't, and I'm kind of like, that's not, and so I don't know. I just find it kind of interesting um for that piece. And that was what I wanted to say
Thank
about
you.
that, where
Yes, yes. So then
the whole match.
to wrap up, because I feel like we actually covered quite a lot, variety
Yes, it
of
looks
things in this
like, yes.
conversation. And I think for me, the bigger picture in terms of this topic and the types of conversations that continue is, again, like we noted at the beginning, holding space to consider other perspectives, holding space
Yes.
to accepting that, yes, there are a variety of transitions we're in an era of a lot of evolutions and transitions happening collectively
Mhm.
and individually. And gender fluidity is part of that. And
Mhm.
being open to better understanding how that influences all of us, not necessarily to question if you were one gender all this time, now you need to flip. It doesn't mean that, but
No, no.
just questioning maybe how some aspects of it might have been holding you back or holding back on the types of connections, community, friendships, and relationships that you deserve that maybe don't fit in these boxes that are no longer,
Mhm.
possibly no longer serving, or maybe had never been serving us, sort of
Mhm.
thing.
True.
But I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this conversation. It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yes.
agree. Because to be honest, yeah, some people that do like those things and fit into that,
Mm.
it's like you don't have to be like, oh, I can't like pink. I can't wear. No, no, no,
No, it's
that's okay.
fine. It's fine.
Just you. It's just the main thing is just to be whatever you like. It's okay. Like you
Mm-hmm.
be who embrace all sides of yourself and you don't have to reject anything or feel
Mm.
like you have to fit in and just because, oh, well, I'm this sex, so my gender should be this. And it's like, no, a lot of that is influenced by media and the society and things like that. So yeah, I think the main thing, like what you said, you should take from this podcast is hold space for change and be open to what your body is telling you. And if you want to wear a dress today, wear a dress. If you want to, for me as a girl, then if you want to wear jeans, wear jeans. You don't have to act a certain way for someone else's gaze, I guess I should say. But
Mm.
it's definitely still a learning. a learning curve for a lot of people, I think.
Yes. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Yes.
As
Love to hear
always,
your thoughts on it.
Yes, let us know your thoughts. We love engaging with you. And we will catch you on the next episode.
Right. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.